In this video, we will discuss how to choose a prop firm to trade with. Stick around to the end to receive a free expert advisor, which can be used with any of these prop firms. So, I wanted to start off this video on a few general notes which go beyond using expert advisors for prop firms, but more so just general best practices when choosing which prop firm to work with. And especially in the past year or so, where we've seen hundreds of prop firms seemingly spring out of nowhere, I find it's very important to always make sure that when buying a challenge, you're buying it from a legitimate business. And by legitimate business, what I mean is really a real company that has employees, that has capital reserves, and most importantly, has a proven history of payouts. So particularly in this giant prop firm bubble, it seemed that every week an influencer was white labeling a software and quickly launching a prop firm, which was really just a front end to a technology provider. And the issue there was many of these people simply did not have capital reserves nor any history of running an actual business. And the problem with that is that as soon as they started to have to make payouts, they didn't have enough cash to be able to meet their obligations. And this led to rapid bankruptcies. So I have found that when looking at a company and evaluating a company, you want to look for signs of capital reserves. And if you see a firm that has a team of software engineers, that has an office, that has all of these expensive hard costs and fixed costs, they must have money from somewhere. So typically, that's a good sign that they have some degree of capitalization. And they also likely have a little bit more control over their operations. Another very key factor is looking at the teams behind a prop firm and understanding and seeing if they understand how the whole brokerage and market making business works. Because if you understand the business of brokers, there's a whole back-end operation behind it, which includes like risk management, liquidity providers, and effectively knowing how to modify trading conditions so that you can have a viable business. To give you an example, if you own a brokerage, if you modify spreads slightly, it can have an enormous impact on your P&L. And knowing that, for instance, in a high impact news event, you might have to widen spreads to be able to reduce your risk so that you as a broker, regardless if you're acting as a market maker or as an STP broker, are not exposed to potential enormous market fluctuations. So effectively, there's a whole back end and risk management aspect to prop firms. And if the founders or if the owners of a firm don't understand this, they likely won't be able to run a sustainable business. A great example of this is Funding Talent, which was one of the early pioneers in the prop firm space. And as a Canadian, they were based here, so we know them well. And unfortunately for them is they almost made trading conditions too good, that they were beyond what you would expect even with an excellent broker. And as they didn't understand how to think probabilistically and how by impacting spreads and changing the odds against their favor would affect them, they ended up destroying their own business just because they didn't understand the risk management and the probabilistic nature of what they were doing. So all of these things to keep in mind, regardless if you're EA trading or manual trading, try to look for a legitimate business when trading with a prop firm. Now we can move on to prop firm rules relating to robots. Here at Prosperity Algo, we develop EAs and many of our clients use them for prop firms. So I wanted to touch on some of the rules to look out for to make sure that you can actually use EAs. The most obvious one is before buying a challenge, always check the prop firm says EAs are allowed. Some prop firms in general, or we'll say more generally, you can't use an EA on our challenges and you have to trade manually. So that would obviously be a non-starter. I would also suggest looking for prop firms which generally allow copy trading, because that simply grants you more flexibility to use one EA across multiple accounts. So this can save you money and allow you to implement more of a rolling account approach and to hedge your risk out over multiple prop firms. One note here too is to point on martingale EAs. So the most common type of trading robot are martingale systems, effectively bots which double down every time they lose. However, you have to be really careful with some prop firms because some prop firms ban martingale systems specifically. This is a screenshot from Funding Traders, for instance. And the reason why they do this is because martingales are uniquely suited to passing prop firm challenges. Because martingales almost always win until they blow up due to a catastrophic run of trades. But with prop firms, that's almost perfect because if you lose your prop firm account once a year, you don't really mind as much because you're simply able to reset and buy a new challenge. With one payout, you've already taken all of your risk off the table. You're no longer out of pocket. This is obviously not the case with a personal account because if you blow your personal account, you've lost your own money. Prop firms know this, and they understand that the risk reward of the prop firm game is ideally suited to martingale systems. So because of that, sometimes they will go out of their way to ban these systems specifically. So something to keep in mind when trading with prop firms is perhaps you want to use a martingale to pass, but as soon as you pass, perhaps depending on how long term you want to hold the account for, you could swap it out with more of a scalping or a better long-term risk managed system. And now to touch on conditions for EAs specifically. And one thing which I would note is spreads are insanely important if you're running any type of scalping system. And to illustrate my point, I wanted to show two different equity curves of our missile system here at Prosperity Algo. This was a 1-year backtest, and the first one is every ticks based on real ticks, which uses particularly punitive spreads. In reality, the results are actually quite a bit better than this, but this would show $10,000 turning into $20,000 over the span of a year. If you go down a level, you can see the same exact backtest run using every ticks, which tends to be not nearly as punitive on spreads as it uses simulated ticks. And this would take that same $10,000 to $90,000. So it is over four times better than with the use of spreads. So keep this in mind. Effectively, if you're able to choose between two prop firms and one is offering you a fee with low spreads relative to no fee with higher spreads, always choose the lower spreads, as this will directly impact your trading system and have an enormous impact on profitability. Finally, I wanted to touch on the use of third-party EAs. So if you were to work with a firm like ours, which would provide third-party EAs, you have to be cognizant of the rules that prop firms impose on them. Ideally, you want to work with a firm such as FTMO, which doesn't inherently ban third-party EAs, but just tells you that you need to introduce some variation to your trades relative to other people. As in that case, you could simply use a prop firm randomizer to add a few points to the entry price or to add a delay, to add a bit of novelty relative to other people's trades. However, even if you work with a firm which does inherently ban them, we can always work together to find a way to add a bit more novelty to your EA relative to a more general one. So, thank you guys very much for your time, and stick around for the following short clip to receive a free EA from us, which can be used to pass prop firm challenges. Before you click away, if you're looking to get a real expert advisor, here at Prosperity Algo Solutions, we're currently offering our Golden Time Bomb system based on automating the London breakout and opening range breakout 100% for free. Watch the pinned video to find out more and to get access.